Well, we'll introduce ourselves. If it's your first time here, welcome. This is Wiccan Warriors Sunday Share. We're here every Sunday and we share. My name's Alistair. I'm a mediumistic life coach, a Reiki master and psychometrist. I'll go and stop saying that term. I don't know if I can take it seriously or not. Okay. And to my left is Penny.
Hello. Is it my turn to introduce myself now?
It is.
Okay. So, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Penny. I'm an empath, a doula, a dowser, Reiki master, advanced master herbalist. The list goes on. That's it, I've sold myself now. I don't want to do it anymore.
So, what are we going to talk about tonight?
Well, before we do, I feel very discombobulated.
Well, we've had a bit of a change around, haven't we? And has that thrown you a bit of a
It's
bit of a
thrown me
curveball?
a lot, to be fair. I feel very wrong-footed. We're sitting on the wrong side for us, not for you. For you, like, it probably looks the
Can
same.
somebody confirm you can hear us? Because I just want to double check the sound's okay. So if somebody could just put, yeah, we can hear you, that would be brilliant. Or else we're just sitting here miming. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah,
so
maybe take us off mute.
we've had a bit of a change around. So I've got a bit of a different setup here. So we're hoping it works. From what I can see on the screen, we're doing pretty well. So I just hope everything else is actually working.
Excellent.
Leah, yes, we can hear you.
Hi,
Excellent.
Leah.
And I can interact straight away with your comments.
Sorry, because of the new setup,
Yeah.
I'm not in charge of the keyboard anymore.
No.
I apologise beforehand.
No, not at all. No.
Okay, let's focus.
So, no, the changes are around. So you will spot we're probably sat at the opposite side, but you should also see the quality is better.
Necessarily, I still haven't got a filter on.
But we now have a nice new computer setup. So we'll be starting to stream YouTube. I might look at Twitter. Some people have been talking about Twitter, but I'm not so sure.
Stop twittering.
Stop twittering on. So yeah, tonight we're going to talk about graveyards.
Dun, dun, dun.
Thank you, Belt.
Hopefully people know what that means.
The question is, would you spend the night in a graveyard?
I've spent many nights in graveyards. That sounds dreadful. Investigating. Not just because I was maybe worse for the wear and fell asleep.
Right.
More from an investigatory perspective. The reason why it's come up is because we're looking at various locations to potentially move to, maybe one day. Sounds cutting in and out.
You're not this bit. You're not. What?
Ooh.
It might be your end. He says confidently knowing he's hopefully got this end set up.
Hello, Michael. I can read better now because it's a giant screen.
Yeah, you can see it.
So yeah, we were thinking of that and a couple of places that I've thought. I'm looking generally around the table. This is very hard work.
It's going to be a weird one tonight.
Yeah. Yes, some of the places that I've looked at have either across the road or very close by or even next door a cemetery or a graveyard. And I don't have an issue with that at all. They're the best kind of neighbours. They don't cause any stress or fuss. So I'd quite happily do that. Live next to one. Would you live next to one? Not just would you stay in one, would you live next to one?
I did.
Right.
Right, shall I step in for a moment, or else you're just going to end up talking the whole time while I get distracted by the computery wizardy stuff? Right, yeah, where I grew up, a little village called Drumure, was a church and graveyard called Betrifney Church. And my mate lived at the house at the back of it. So I had to walk his long driveway, which scooped all the way around the graveyard and then onto the road to the church and then out onto the sort of, I say main road, but it was still a country back road. And I used to run it. I'm not going to lie, I never walked it ever. I always ran it as a kid. Because I was convinced, because I felt I could pick up on stuff like that, that they'd know and they'd get me. And I was on my own. So I was like, I'm just not going to take the chance. I'm just going to jog. Just jog. It don't matter. It doesn't look like I'm running.
We're going to cover that later about superstitions around graveyards.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah. Okay, right. We've got a couple of comments. Brian, I wouldn't mind. Did you read that one out?
I didn't read out at all.
All right, Brian, I wouldn't mind living next to one. Not at all. Why? Why would you not mind? I can imagine I know why people would mind. But Michael said, I don't get why ghosts would be in a graveyard. Surely they would hang about somewhere dear to them. Yeah, I agree.
I agree. I've always said that. That's not to say there isn't any, but there's spirits everywhere. But not exclusively in graveyards. Absolutely. They've already left their vessel before it gets buried.
Yeah, like Brian says, because they're dead.
Yeah. The spirit's not there. Only a few spirits remain in graveyards.
Yeah, no, the spirit's moved on by that point.
Sometimes it's not actually anything to do with the graveyard. It could be, or it could be that they lived there before it was, on that ground, or it could be that, I don't know. It could be that they went to that church, or that area was significant to them. It might not actually be because it's a graveyard at all. I'm going to be blinded by that. That's right.
We've got a really beautiful sunset coming straight down the side of us.
Can't see now.
Okay, I'll close the curtain.
It's like when you stare at a light bulb.
Just
now
keep everybody
just got
entertained.
light bulbs. Singing and dancing.
Yeah.
Can you close the curtains faster then? Because they'll get bored. Okay, so because we were having the conversations about graveyards, we've got some sherry information. So we're going to educate you this evening. Because the purpose of the shares is that it is the same as a discovery circle. When people come together, which with things lifting, hopefully we'll be able to start.
Yeah, we'd like to start a discovery
with
circle.
Real people.
Real people. It'll be limited numbers because of space and COVID compliance, but.
Yeah, but I mean, when everything's completely back to normal.
Do I want it to
Not
go back to normal?
necessarily. Anyway, so off on a tangent again. So I've got lots of information that I wanted to go through. Some of it will have talking points. If I say anything at all that interests you, or you don't agree with, or you heartily agree with, let us know. So, first of all, I'm going to have to put my step now because I can't see. So, we've got some fun facts about graveyards. It's at this point we need a little twinkly sound to start that off.
This is like night one. I'm going to try and find some funky stuff to do on this, but.
Put some effort in. Right, so, fun fact, number 1. Why are we buried 6 foot down? Do you know why?
I don't know, Penny. Why are we buried 6 foot down?
Oh, good. We're going to do it that way. Okay, so it originated, the depth originated in the 1600s, and it was around the Black Death. And it was about the virus or the illness or the disease. People were terrified that they were going to catch it, even from somebody that died. So they decided to bury them deeper than they possibly would ordinarily. So that's
the virus climbed up.
Yeah.
I get that.
But what happened was that family members had already caught it, but the symptoms hadn't come out. So when that particularly sick, everybody knew they were sick, diagnosed family member died, and everybody else appeared well, they would get buried, and then the family members would get sick afterwards because they'd already contracted it but not shown any symptoms, and it was believed that it was the virus coming back from the dead to kill the family.
Jeebus.
So they buried them 6 feet down. It was also a deterrent for grave robbers. because that's quite a lot of digging to do. And in theory, somebody would become aware if you were in a graveyard for that long.
Take a lot longer.
Yeah.
It's like the joke, isn't it?
Catch you.
If it takes 2 men an hour to dig a hole, how long does it take one man to dig half a hole? Have a think about that.
Oh my God. As if my brain isn't fragmented
Carry on.
this evening. And the other reason was it was about farming. That if land was reused for farming, where you rotated your crops,
Right.
if people were buried there, if they were 6 feet down, you wouldn't plough them back up again.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Doesn't
Fair
matter how
point.
deep your plough was, it wouldn't go 6 feet down, so the body would be safe and you wouldn't get it mixed up with your veg.
Potatoes.
Yeah. It's funny, I thought
Excellent.
potatoes at the same time. So that's 6 feet. If you know any other reason, let us know. Another fun fact. Are humans the only ones that bury their dead?
I'm going to say no, because there's got to be some animal out there that just kicks dirt over it, or a monkey
No.
that puts rocks or something.
Well, here's the thing. Chimpanzees they don't bury, but they cover.
Alright, okay.
So they behave in a similar way to humans in that they nurse the sick and look after them, and when they die, they cover them with leaves and branches. Okay?
It's just to get rid of the smell.
Ants have designated not drones, but like, I'm going to say grave...
Morticians.
Yeah, let's go with that. They have dedicated ants that look for dead ants within their colony, or if they're all going for a walk, don't know, to the cemetery. If they find a dead ant, they'll cover it up. They'll move it out the way and they'll cover it up. So if it dies in their colony, they will take it out of the colony and cover it. So they bury it. There are stories, oh God, we've lost ourselves. There are stories about foxes and badgers, but they're kind of anecdotal, and it's more believed that they would bury another of their kind to save them for later, for when food is scarce, if they get desperate. So they physically bury, but there's no obvious emotional response from it. It is more about storing it for later if they get hungry.
Does it spell B-U-R-R-E-D?
No!
My brain just...
I-E-D.
Oh, that
No,
makes...
one R.
Yeah,
Oh
I-E-D.
God, it's like being at school.
My brain went completely dead then and went, no, I'm not going to tell you how to spell buried.
Bird.
Bird.
Okay,
That was it, then.
so an animal that they do believe, and there has been lots of research on it, that does bury their dead is an elephant. And elephants have been shown to exhibit emotional responses like mourning and grief.
I've seen that in elephants as well.
I've just said elephants.
Oh, did you? Oh, fair enough.
You're not listening then?
No. It's funny how that happens. You normally do that to me during the week, during the talks.
If gangsters were to 86 you, it means get rid of you. It means throw you away, get rid of you. If you're 86 something, and I can't remember why, and I don't know if it's because of a tram or a transport thing or a sports thing. I'm not sure, but to 86 something or someone is to get rid.
Oh.
See? There. See? Very good.
Oh, yeah, so 8 miles
I've
out
heard
town
other
and 6
reason.
feet down.
I've heard other reasons,
Excellent.
but that's very good. I like that. Okay. Okay, so, yeah, elephants show grief and mourning. So, next fun fact. In most cases, Christian burials are done and the body is buried facing east. And it is done...
Feet facing east or head facing east?
feet. So if you sit up, you're facing
Oh,
east.
okay.
I believe. Because the relevance of a new day, the sun rising in the east, new day, new life, and because scriptures say that Christ will come from the east. You don't have to believe that. That might not be something that happens now, because we don't necessarily follow scripture.
No.
As before. There are many other religions now. So, another fact. Sorry, I just thought of a random story about a witch who was found buried. Everybody else was buried. Actually, it was in America, and they were buried west to east, not east to west. And except the one woman who's accused of being a witch in the graveyard, and she was buried north to south. Anyway, so another fun fact. Some people are buried face down.
So the world can kiss their ass.
No, that isn't why. Have you been waiting? Have you looked at my notes and
No, but
waiting for me to get there?
That was the obvious statement.
Okay. So, some people are buried face down. Some of it is linked to things like the Black Death and illness, and the fear that the illness is going to come back out of the person, or the spirit is going to come out of that person and bring the death and destruction to their family and things. And some of it was evil. If somebody's going to rise from the dead, if they're facing downwards, where are they rising to? Not rising anywhere. I don't know, because clearly people just sit bolt upright. When you're dead, you bend
That's
at the
the only
waist.
way you can get up.
You rise at the waist first.
So you end up doing like a weird caterpillar motion if you face down. Did everybody else's brain jump to that same equation?
Well, mine didn't.
Like the caterpillar, and you see people sort of crawling along.
You're
Sorry,
a weirdo.
there we go.
You're a weirdo. Oh, this is a good one. In Utah, there is a grave of...
Is that the same as Utah? An American place?
It's America. Let's go
Okay.
with that. Where is that? Illinois? No.
I don't know.
I don't know. Anyway, there, in that American-y place, there is a grave that has 3 people in it. It is... no, there's 4 people in it. A husband, a wife, and his parents. But on that grave, bizarrely, there is a gigantic ball of stone, and the date of the death of his wife is listed as the 31st of February 1881. So, in theory, we all know there's not 31 days in February.
You all spotted that, didn't you?
So, his wife, Caroline Barnes, if anybody out there is called Caroline Barnes, I apologise, was accused of being a witch. And the theory being, the superstition being, that a witch will rise on the day of her death. So if the day of her death doesn't exist, she can never rise. So that's the story. I have seen a picture of the grave, and it does say 31st of February 1881. So that's
Pretty cool.
interesting.
I think that's quite cool.
And she hasn't come back, so it clearly works. Interesting fact about gravestones. Some gravestones have symbols on them. I don't think it's a practice that's of recent history, to be fair. But some of them have symbols. So if there is a symbol of an hourglass on its side, that means that time stopped for that person.
Right.
So in theory, they were old. If there was a broken flower or tree, their life was cut short.
Okay.
If the symbol is a hand pointing down, it's sudden death.
Right.
And if there's hands clasped or a handshake, it means the couple are united in death. And there's symbols that can appear on gravestones.
They're pretty cool. I've always said
The
I'd like
last
to design my
one is
own.
there'll be a lamb. If there's a lamb, it's a child. But even if you, because I've seen lots of graves that don't have dates on them and just have names, if there is a lamb, it's the grave of a child. Yeah, sorry, you want to design your
Yeah,
own gravestone?
I'd like to have my own, design my own gravestone, but I want a second-hand one. And I want to chisel their name off and just chisel my name in. And then just...
Is
yeah.
anybody else as horrified
And then
as
have
me?
the actual gravestone put in at 45 degrees so that it looks like it's been there for...
God.
I want it to look like it's been there already for 100 years.
You're horrendous.
I don't want a fresh, brand new gravestone. They're all... No,
You don't have to have a headstone.
Well, yeah, there is that.
You don't
I don't
want.
care what you do.
Thank God, because going out for the bin men. And then which bin is it?
Oh, it's like your family to put people in bin bags, isn't it?
In the garden bin or the black bin?
Anyway, back on topic.
Anyway, I'll look back at. I'll look
So
at
yeah,
that.
it'd be interesting if you see those. I'm going to have a look back now at
Symbols.
pictures I've taken of graves.
Yeah.
Because I've never noticed those.
No.
That's pretty cool.
So, what's the difference between a cemetery and a graveyard?
I don't know, Tenny. What's the difference between a cemetery and a graveyard?
A graveyard adjoins a church. A cemetery doesn't. So a cemetery can be in the middle of nowhere, but a graveyard is around a church.
That makes sense, I suppose.
Oh, I didn't know that. So, little fun bit now. Superstition. You were saying about running past the graveyard.
Yeah.
Many people believe in holding their breath when you pass a graveyard. I've heard so many people say that you have to hold your breath as you go past the graveyard. So if it's a big one, that's not good. You're
I
going to
couldn't
be
have
unwell.
done that.
The reasoning was that you hold your breath because if you breathe, it's loud enough to wake the spirits. Or when you breathe, you make the spirits jealous, so they'll come after you. Exactly, thank you, Belle. Another superstition is not whistling in a graveyard.
Is that because they're jealous? Because they can't whistle because they've got no lips now? Because it's just like...
Well, unless
skull.
they're buried face down and then they can whistle but from a different place. Yeah.
Oh, you were being even ruder than I was.
Yeah. So, that is apparently will encourage the devil to come for you. If during your burial there is thunder, it is believed, if it happens during, that you are going to hell. If it happens after the service, you're going to heaven. It's the sound of the body going into heaven, the spirit going into heaven.
If it happens at mine, it's Thor's arrived.
You so wish.
Yeah.
One of my lovely daughters was born during a major thunderstorm, and it did kind of set the tone.
Yeah, I can guess which one.
Yeah, you can.
So did you know about them superstitions? Let us know in the comments.
Yeah, and just
Tell me
one more that's kind of linked to it, but it isn't, and you hear it a lot, and people don't necessarily know, and I've also had people ask what it's about, is why don't you put new shoes on a table? Hysterical mum, pretty much every mum over 45 will go, don't put new shoes on the table.
Yeah.
And not many people know why. And I will tell you why. The reason is the only time new shoes would be on a table is when somebody had died and they were laid out in their home. So they would have new shoes on and then be laid out, usually, if you had it, in the parlour, waiting for the burial. Because there was no going off.
So the object of the superstition then is that if you put your shoes on the table,
It
when you
means
put them
someone's
on...
going to die. I don't know.
So
I'm
what
just
arrived
telling you.
first, the new shoes or the dead man? Did he die and then they bought the new shoes? Or did they buy the new shoes and then he just coincidentally
You're
died?
dressed in your best for people coming to say goodbye to you.
Yeah, so did they buy brand new shoes for that?
No.
Am I looking too deeply into
Yeah,
this?
yeah, you're confusing me now. Yes, they bought the shoes. Because you don't buy the shoes in case you're going to die. The shoes were bought after the person had died. So the theory being, you only have new shoes on the table when someone's dead.
I get
When
that. So
there's
you
a
can
body
only
in
be
it.
buried in new shoes.
No, you don't have to be buried in new shoes.
Sounds like this superstition was played out by cobblers, if you ask me.
Oh.
Want to sell a load of new shoes?
What a load of cobblers.
My
So,
granddad was part of that scam.
I've got 3 cute coffin stories. So 1, the safety coffin. Some of you have heard of this. The safety coffin was to check that somebody wasn't buried alive, and intricate systems were put in place. Some had a hatch that provided air just in case the person was buried alive, and some came up through a hole and a pipe thing that came above ground and had a little bell on it, and if somebody was alive they could ring the bell so that people could hear and know that they were buried and they shouldn't be, and that's where we get dead ringers from. I don't know. Anyway, in 1843 there was a patent for an escape coffin. So any of you that like looking up old patents of weird things, there was an escape coffin. This is the best. So the hatch for breathing, brilliant. The bell to notify people you were down there, brilliant. Next best thing was the escape coffin, which had a mechanism in it that would open and would spring you upright.
Jeebus.
Yeah, so that people would know that you was alive. So you would spring up a jack-in-a-box.
Oh, tell me I wasn't the only one that
in
thought,
the graveyard.
I want that to go off accidentally and just fling a dead body.
And it was triggered by, it had spring attachments. You can find it online.
I want one of them.
It had spring attachments and things for all of that to happen. And in theory, that was triggered by movement of either the head or the hands, to show that the person was a definite movement.
What age can you buy a coffin?
Interestingly, the man that took out the patent was buried in one of his escape coffins. He never came back.
He didn't escape.
Damn. Okay. There is no age limit on when you can buy one, you weirdo.
No, I was
You
just
want to
thinking.
buy one now?
No, I was just thinking. When is it socially acceptable to go and buy yourself a coffin?
There are people that
You're also
do it.
assuming that you're going to go in a box.
In other countries, I watched a documentary about a man who, it was a,
I don't want this to divert into funerals, but
no,
just
it was a,
indulge me for a
like a
moment.
South Asia place, and the man built his own coffin. He knew that he wasn't well, and he knew that he didn't have long, so he was a carpenter, so he made his own coffin. That's done quite a lot in other countries.
I reckon people are going to want my body for medical science because they're not going to know how the fuck it's managed to do what it's been doing for as long as it's been doing.
Somebody's got to want your body.
So, analyse my brain for mental health research. No, I'm just thinking, I don't
Well,
need all that
take
space in
long.
a coffin.
They just need a tiny little knife for the brain analyzer.
No need.
The last cute fact
Sorry, tangent.
is Mort Safes. These come up online all the time. People put pictures of graves with massive cages around them and chains and all kinds of things, and they're called Mort Safes. And they didn't just have cages over them, they had great big granite stones put on them as well, and they were mainly used to stop grave robbers. So it was generally somebody that had money or were going to be buried with a lot of possessions, and it was to stop grave robbers.
So it wasn't to stop zombies?
Some people believe it was, but it was mainly to stop grave robbing.
Because the problem with it...
In fact, there is a grave, and I responded to somebody on Facebook about it a few weeks ago, that had 3 massive stones that in theory you wouldn't be able to move because they were so massive, but people became really obsessed by them and started trying to move them. So they then put a cage over it, which over the years has got rusty and stuff, so it looks really creepy.
I'm just wondering how many they did before they kind of, how much time needs to elapse before they kind of go, we've got no zombie trapped the other side of a cage, before we kind of work out that we don't need to do this. Zombies are just not there. They're not
You
real.
don't really see it now, do you?
No.
And it might be because in the late 1800s they brought out the
Zombie Act. It
no,
became illegal.
it was. I think it was something like the Anatomy Act, that doctors weren't allowed to practice on cadavers that there wasn't an origin for.
Oh yeah, all the paperwork came involved.
Yeah, to stop that.
So somebody could make some money legitimately.
So there's some weird fun facts for you and a bit of superstition.
Yeah, so that's graveyards. Like, I touched on funerals a little bit. If you out there have bought your own coffin, I'd be interested to know. Because I'm going to live
buy it
forever.
on a payment plan.
That's what I kind of don't want that though.
I don't want that either. I don't want you to live forever.
Forever's a really long time.
See if you can manage to get through the week.
That's always it's always a good challenge.
Okay.
So in being older and wiser and more level-headed, graveyards didn't bother me. And the same graveyard that I used to run past as a teenager, I used to purposely go and sit in. And there was a section in the middle. I don't know what it was called. It looked like a little mini house in the middle of it, and it was something to do with the minister or where it was. It was the kind of their area, but it was the most silent spot in the world. So I used to sit in there and just chill out and smoke. I was not allowed to smoke.
When we were kids, they used to do grave rubbings with charcoal.
Oh yeah, I've done that.
Yeah, you're not allowed to do that apparently anymore. Because the gravestones that everybody's interested in are the really old ones, and they get damaged really easily.
I was thinking it was because of the don't want to leave too much of a carbon footprint.
You're an idiot. I apologise beforehand.
But have you spent the night in a graveyard?
I have investigated until the very, very early hours. I've been in a graveyard.
Right.
Do you know, it's not actually the thought that there's spirits in the graveyard that makes me nervous. It's more, you don't know what wildlife is out there. I prefer to face my foes, so if there's any insects or wee beasties coming after me, I'd rather know.
Right.
I don't like being startled, and I'm very easily startled. And not being able to see where I'm going for a wee. Obviously, I don't wee in the graveyard. If I'm there all night, where else am I going to wee?
Hashtag overshare.
Oh God, we're going to be sponsored by the She-Wee next. And it is
You're
something I
essential
believe in.
She-Wee for your night in the graveyard.
Yeah.
That's not
So
an
yeah,
advert.
it isn't. No. So it isn't that I think it's particularly frightening. I think anywhere where you can't see
Maybe we should
makes
do
you
it.
nervous and wrong foot you. To be fair, if I can't see in the house, it makes me nervous and wrong foot me. So
Yeah, that's true. So why, we need to go and do some nights. Not live, I'm not talking about live, but we'll go and...
Can we do it when it's like a nice evening as opposed to when it's chucking it down?
Yeah, that's
Really
kind of
can't.
the logic. He's trying to find excuses not to do it before we've even
I'm
started.
quite lazy. I'll be honest, I am quite lazy.
But here's the next question. So, what do you think we pick up on most in a graveyard? Residual energy, what people kind of say stone memories, or actual spirit energy?
First one.
The majority of it was as residual energy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I would have gone with. Because like we said right at the beginning, the spirit's moved, the vessel's just been recycled.
So. Sometimes there's a link. Sometimes there's a link. For example,
I think if I did have a grave, I'd come back and check it and then go, why isn't nobody cleaning my grave?
Yeah.
That would be the first thing to do your head. You'd kick all the flowers over and go, well, look after it. And then nobody does.
You're going to be well cheery as a spirit, aren't you? Please don't come
You're going to
back.
know if there's an afterlife once I've gone. I'll find a way.
Bind myself so I can't have any communication.
I'll find a way.
That'll be fun.
So in that instance then, so let's say as a prep, so if we plan to go to a graveyard,
Yeah.
we're going to predominantly be reading residual energy.
Yeah.
So that to us is like kind of telling a short story based on where we're standing.
Yeah.
I'm sure we've spoken about psychometry and stuff
Yeah.
like that before. But on that, it doesn't necessarily have to be just us two that do it. Because if we're looking at doing an open circle or a
Yeah.
discovery circle, that could be potentially we meet at a place,
Yeah.
socially distanced, and have a bit of a vigil in a graveyard. I don't think too many people, probably 3 or 4, is depending on the size of the place.
Yeah.
But would you guys be interested in that? Would anybody be interested in that?
Yeah. No, I want to stay at home.
You want to stop saying like that?
Yeah.
So what else can we say about graveyards?
Well, I've jotted down the list of the 10 allegedly most haunted graveyards around the world.
Okay. Around the world?
Around the world.
Crumbs. I was looking, before we get to that...
Oh, don't ask me a question then
No.
cut me off. My brain doesn't work
That's why
that
you've got
way.
notes.
Yeah.
It's what I was talking about earlier. You was looking at how long you own a grave for. So if you bought it and you're buried in it, how long is it yours? And it was between 50 and 75 years, but no more than 100. So 100 years is the maximum you can have it. And then it could transfer to your spouse or whatever it was, but they can do again the same denomination if they're going in the same plot or...
Internment.
Yeah. But that was it. So after 100 years...
In theory...
it could just be reused or
Yes.
resold.
Yes.
Because they state that after 80 years there is nothing left. No bone, nothing.
What were you hoping for a souvenir?
Well, no, but I figured there would be stuff that wouldn't perish, like the buckles off of shoes and belts, and
Okay.
if they were wearing jewellery,
That's
things
what
like that.
archaeologists are digging up next to a series of small walls.
Exactly, which leads me to my next point. Because after 300 or 400 years of a place that's now not an established place, so let's take the church where we went. If we wind the clock forward 400 or 500 years, we don't know whether Northamptonshire County Council will be in a position where they're still maintaining that.
No, that's true.
Or the whole area could just be changed and have a change of land usage because everything there is over 100 years old. And then your house could end up being built on an old gravesite, but a really old one.
Step into the lab, Carolyn.
So the chances are, living in the UK, you probably already live near an old burial ground of some description.
It's true.
Don't look out the window just now. They're all waving at you.
You're
Sorry.
a weirdo.
Oh, got some comments.
Oh, God.
Do you think when you die and your spirit leaves your body, that some spirits are still somehow attached to the body, and that's why they hang around in the graveyard?
Sometimes I think that is true. I think that the shock of the passing was so quick that the spirit hasn't realised that they've passed. I don't think that's a regular thing. I don't think that happens every time, but I think there are occasions that has happened.
That sense of unfinished business sort of logic.
The not realising what's happened, that they're actually dead.
Yeah.
Like, I think that movie, The Others, is really accurate. Because the spirit moves in a way as if the same boundaries are still there, the same walls are still there. So when they say they go through, walk through walls, or appear to be floating and there's no stairs or anything, yeah, but what was the layout of the land or the building when they passed?
But would that be a spirit, or is that residual?
It depends if it's got a physical form.
That's kind of what I was kind of drilling it down to on that, because technically the spirit is gone, so it would be their choice to come back, to they're purposely revisiting
No,
the spot.
the spirit hasn't always gone. The spirit can linger for a really long time, but if it is hundreds and hundreds of years, then it will weaken until it is residual energy. That's my belief, anyway.
Also, we've had a recommendation if we go to Glasgow to get to
The necropolis, I bet it is.
yeah, necropolis from Michael.
I've been there.
I've been to
I
Edinburgh,
actually
I went to the
wasn't
castle.
sure because I have been to family cemeteries in Scotland, but I couldn't remember where one particular one was, so I asked. But it's in Greenock.
Yeah.
But I have been.
No, I've been to Edinburgh Castle, but I've not been in there.
Posh Scotland.
Yeah.
Let's offend everybody.
I'm not doing my Scottish impressions.
No. Okay. So, did you say there's lots of comments?
Oh, it doesn't let me answer the poll. I
Creative
was trying to answer my
idiot.
own.
Don't answer your own poll. Right, read. You said there was lots of comments.
No, it's just kind of Bryony and Michael chatting with themselves about the vaults being cool.
Don't chat to each other, chat to us.
I think we need to go somewhere local.
Okay.
So where's...
Well, Edinburgh isn't local.
No, but a couple of people sort of around near us, and we find a grave, not a graveyard perhaps, a cemetery,
Okay.
and do an actual evening vigil. Let us know if you'd be interested in that. We're coming out of lockdown now. I want to go out, I want to get some fresh air, I want to spend some time with some spirits and some energy and derelict
Michael's
buildings.
Glasgow way. So,
Glasgow. Well, to be fair, I've been looking at a campsite up north where I used to live. So an actual Scottish tour is kind of on my bucket list because there's places where I grew up that I'd like to revisit.
and places that I spent quite a lot of my childhood.
Yes. So there's, yeah, all right. It's not just about me.
Oh.
So yeah, if we
Real Scottish family, plastic jock.
no plastic jar. No, in Scottish, English.
Anywho.
If you want to find out about my journey through Scotland, by all means go and have a look at my own page. Right. Graveyards. So we've got a couple of recommendations of Glasgow and Edinburgh. Have you got any that are like in the Midlands?
Yeah, if it could be more of a local one so that we don't have to travel, that'd be great.
Yeah.
We'll think on it, because there's lots. If you've got any ideas, just send us a message, let us know. I've got images now of loads of emails coming in with people sending us their calendars to show us when they're free. Here's the list of local to me, and these are the dates that I'm available.
No, but I think we
That
could
would be
definitely
hilarious.
do something and start getting the Discovery Circle stuff sorted.
I agree. So let me do my last bit of educating.
Come on then.
Because we're hammering through time. So the 10 supposedly most haunted cemeteries around the world. Number 10 is Stoll Cemetery in Kansas. There's going to be a few in America because the landmass is vast. And because some of them are weird, apologies if you're American. So Stoll Cemetery in Kansas. There was an article written in 1974 saying that the devil visits twice a year on Halloween and the spring equinox. Yes, you know, tie him up, tie the devil in with the paganism. Let's do that.
If there's no such thing as God, there's no such thing as devil.
No, apparently, when people visit the graveyard for whatever length of time, they don't remember what's happened while they're in there.
Sorry.
And that the Pope apparently refused to fly over there.
How would he know?
I don't know. Is that haunted?
I bet he didn't. I bet he said, we will go over there, but we'll flush. Tell me what angle we've got to go, and we'll flush the loo in the plane as we go over.
I don't think so. He's so holy he doesn't go.
Pope poop.
Stop it. So number 9, Glasnevin Cemetery in Dublin, with the famous story of the dog who died of starvation lying on his master's tomb, amongst other ghosts,
Is that the
obviously.
same as
'cause
Greyfire's Bobby? Is that the same kind of...
if you like. Number 8, pot pickers. Rookwood Cemetery in Sydney, Australia. famous spiritualists, the Davenport brothers, are buried there and believed to be the link between this life and the next. In Georgia, another American one, Colonial Park. In the 1800s, yellow fever ravaged the area. There were mass graves in there, and then at some point, plots were moved, bodies were exhumed and moved to different locations, and the theory being there's a lot of unquiet spirits because their bodies were moved. Again, is that likely? Because it's an empty vessel. Who knows? At 6, La Relacota in Australia, where there is a legend of a young girl who was buried alive, and I believe it was somebody who was worked with her or knew her. There was something suspicious, so they exhumed, and when they opened the lid of the coffin, it was covered in scratch marks. So she was allegedly buried alive. So she's apparently haunting the cemetery in Argentina. There's the Highgate Cemetery in London, full of famous people, including the Highgate vampire.
Really?
I really wanted to go, how many ghosts? One ghost. Yeah, there's vampire has been seen, he's 7 foot tall, he's got hypnotic eyes.
Of course he has.
Yeah. At 4, Resurrection Cemetery in Chicago, another American one, haunted by Resurrection Mary. The story from the 1930s onwards, with hundreds of reports of people that have allegedly seen Resurrection Mary. It's a female that walks along a certain stretch of road and hitchhikes, and men stop to give her a lift. The only thing she says is that she wants to go back to Resurrection Cemetery. So she doesn't talk other than that. She's silent, but by the time they get to the cemetery, she's gone. She's constantly trying to get back to the cemetery.
She's constantly ordering like Ubers.
Well, she's not paying for them.
No, that's what I mean. She just keeps getting out and not paying.
Yeah.
Rude.
Yeah.
She's not read the handbook for the recently deceased, has she?
No. Then there's Valley of the Kings in Egypt. Been there.
Nearly been there.
Covered in curses. When the pharaohs were buried, there was lots of curses placed on anybody who disturbed their body. Most famous obviously being Tutankhamun, and there's lots of deaths linked to the exhumation of his body and the opening of his sarcophagus. At 2, the Westminster Burial Ground in Baltimore, with the interesting story of the Screaming Skull. Skull of apparently a minister, I believe, that screams amongst other ghosts. And the most famous one of all, Greyfriars Kirkyard in Edinburgh, that apparently has a very physically violent poltergeist. So I'm seeing our next holiday plan.
You can get to Edinburgh in 4 or 5 hours.
But not now. I've got a couple of days.
We do it tomorrow morning.
I've got some plans. Other notable places in Salem, where there's an accused warlock that's buried amongst many women that was accused of being witches. In New Orleans, the Queen of Voodoo, Marie Laveau, is buried. In Père Lachaise in Paris, where lots of famous people are buried, including Jim Morrison and all of that. That's worth mentioning. I've been there, it's amazing, and it's quite creepy because it's huge and it's kind of built on weird
I would
hills.
like to go to places like that.
But an interesting story about Père Lachaise is the story of Abelard and Eloise. And and there is this really intricate, it looks like a gazebo, a stone gazebo if I'm honest with you, but it is allegedly the grave of Abelard and Eloise. And Abelard was a philosopher and a theologian, and Eloise was an aristocratic intellectual lady, and Abelard was employed by this lady's family to be her teacher, her educator, whatever. He was 20 years older than her, but they fell in love, and they ran away and secretly got married and allegedly had a child. Her uncle, who was the canon, so to do with the church, came after them and found them, and Abelard was castrated, and Eloise was put into a convent, which she stayed out the rest of her life, and ended up being the abbess of. But he survived the, I imagine, quite brutal castration, and they continued to write to each other. They weren't allowed to see each other for the rest of their lives, and they complied with that and wrote to each other, and the letters of Abelard and Eloise are really famous. So how they would come together to be buried, that's quite an interesting thought, how that happened, but that's a really good story. All of those cemeteries do have loads of stories linked to them that would make an amazing investigation.
I do.
Sure.
Michael said it's a fabulous graveyard, and the Greyfriars pub has some good spirits.
Ah, very good. Boom, boom. So yeah.
We're on the last 10 minutes. What do you think to tonight's show? Is it interesting?
Before you get into that, I've said it a lot actually. There's nothing else on there.
Oh,
don't
that's what I thought. I thought you've got the Indian notes.
I did get to the end of my notes. I probably educated you all this evening. You
did if you were listening. There's a test coming.
If you want to see bodies, you want to go to the Catacombs in Paris. Paris that I've been many times, but never actually got to go into the Catacombs. I've been as far as the gate repeatedly. Apparently it's open, but every single time I've been, it's been closed. It's the wrong day, it's the wrong time, it's the wrong season. And my favourite on the last time, when I managed to get there the right day, the right time, in the right season, and it should have been opened, it was closed for maintenance and cleaning.
You were polishing the
Never
skulls.
been there. It's very upsetting.
Bryony says loads of interesting facts.
Excellent. So now you're all proper educated. Let me just go and get the test.
Right, so with the last sort of 4 or 5 minutes,
Yeah.
what do you guys think about a discovery circle? We're thinking 2 things. One, what we would do, we keep doing the Sunday share as it is, but then once a month there wouldn't be a live on Facebook or YouTube or anything. It would just be people actually here, and we'd do a physical discovery circle.
Yeah.
So I don't know, we could talk
That
about
would take
numbers.
some planning for Michael to be a part of that.
Yes, I think it's a long way for Michael to come down for a couple of hours.
For a bit of a chat and a coffee.
I think under the current restrictions, I think we're best to look at potentially doing a bit of a vigil. Let's go out and...
Outdoors,
Yeah.
but sensibly social distance.
Because we need a screamer, really. Because, yeah, you're a bit jumpy, but you know spirits.
Yeah.
I kind of don't give a monkeys and no spirits. We need a screamer. We need somebody that creates that kind of, oh, there's a spirit over there. Oh, did you hear that? Oh, did you hear that? We need somebody like that, I think.
Oh, okay.
Or do you think that just puts us off?
No, I think all energy is good energy, because it's something for the less strong spirits to feed on.
It's something to think about, anyway. Okay.
But that sounded awful. That's like all the spirits are out there going, give me your energy. Nom, 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 nom.
That's what they are like sometimes.
Yeah.
Bryony, I'm a screamer. Don't want to know your private
Wrong,
life,
it's
thanks.
the wrong kind of channel for that kind of
That's what your neighbours said as well.
enlightened comment. Very good. Very good.
Michael,
wait
a bit far away. Wait till you come to Scotland, and I'll have to come and meet and say hello. You know.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
We'll do. Well, we were planning on going up, and they locked us down. I was actually
Yeah, you nearly paid.
this close.
Yeah.
I had just put off paying for our Scotland trip, and then within days they said it's locked down now, and it was, well, that was lucky.
Yeah. But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you found it interesting. I hope you like the fact we've had a bit of a change round, and
Yeah.
I thought we'd change the view so that.
It's just looking, I'll have to move the books about because you've mainly got quite a lot of birth books there.
Yeah, we might need to move my tarot books up.
The other ones.
Do a bit of set designing, I think. What do you do the summer solstice? We always go, brothers, and we always have a circle in the garden with our closest friends and give thanks.
We have a fire, for
Yep.
sure, in the garden. I don't think that we'll be doing a naked circle this year, although that is
Did we do one last year
advisable.
then?
That is advisable. Just saying. How close are you to your family members?
Not that close.
Yeah. Oh, and you don't want to be that close to your family's members. I tend to put together appropriate herbs. I think last year we had.
Yeah, altars get decorated. There'll be a
We
particular.
had Adele here last year.
Yeah. So yeah,
Did we
I tend to do fires.
incantations and herbs.
Yeah.
I do remember putting together herbs. And giving thanks.
So yeah, it tends to be that. I'm not a big extravagant. That's why I don't post a lot of stuff on social media. I'm not a massive kind of, oh look, here's what I'm doing. Look how pagan it is. I'm not. I'm not like that, to be fair. Well, we're both not. So it tends to be. Oh, I don't know. I can keep it quite simple. Just literally be a fire. Throw some herbs in. Perhaps some notes. Writing stuff, want stuff to go, or.
It smells amazing in the garden when you put the herbs in the fire.
So yeah. But yeah. So graveyards. I'm gonna think about that. I think at some point.
Places to go.
Yeah, at some point
I've
this
been to a
next
few.
week, I'm going to go out. Even if I go on my own, I'll go and do some recording. Now I've got my new computer, I can do some editing and stuff.
You're not carrying that out with you.
No, it's a bit bulky.
It's not
Well.
really a mobile setup, is it?
Right, it's the last few minutes, guys. Who fancies tapping some hearts so we can see them go up the screen? I'll scroll back up so we can see our faces.
Oh, you don't want to see that.
Oh, you're quite bright.
I said to you, it's like I'm sitting in the sun here.
It doesn't want to turn down either. It's just.
And I can't see. Oh, that's bad. Actually, that was quite flattering. It looked like I'd got a tan. It's a little bit too rosy now, isn't it? Yeah, it kind of goes bright, 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 bright off.
Yeah, it's not brilliant. But anyway, yeah. So thank you for watching. We've enjoyed it. It's been fun. I'm waiting to see some love hearts go up the screen, but I don't think I'm going to see any.
People don't like us. They're glad we're gone. They've already given up. They've already closed their screens and gone and put the kettle on.
I'm hoping the feed looks better. I'm hoping it all kind of feels right. Hopefully in the next coming sessions that we do, it will probably predominantly be YouTube as well. So I'm going to figure out how we're going to do all of that.
Okay.
But I'm not going to move away from Facebook. But
No, because lots of people only use Facebook.
yeah, but I want to be able to. I want us to attack multiple platforms at the same time.
Force people in all avenues of the world to listen to us.
But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed it. It would be lovely if you could share the video, tell your friends.
Oh,
That would
I
be great.
haven't got any friends, so I can't tell anybody. Have we got comments?
Oh, let me just see. No.
No, nobody loves us.
Right. Thank you for watching.
Thank you.
Let's go.
Oh, it's good night from him.
I haven't got to lean up and do that. I could just do like a little sneaky clip.
All right, you're just going to say good night.
Yes, okay. It's a good night from her.
It's good night from him.
Bye.
Bye.